Hi, this is Douglas Robinson with DevEdit Software LLC, and in this video we're going to be upgrading our Cherwell environment to Cherwell version 9.4. So I've downloaded the 9.4.0 installation files, and I've got them open on the screen, and I've launched the Cherwell Service Management Installation application, or EXE, or MSI, whatever the file extension is. Before I start, I want to notice a couple things I actually noticed in this directory here. So when you open up the download here for the Cherwell installer, usually there's a utilities folder, and that holds things like the trusted agent server or the authentication server, and there's a media folder which holds things commonly like your ZARs if you want to pick a demo or starter ZAR, and the Cherwell browser, client, and server apps. On this version, I noticed there's two additional packages that are included under media, and those are this server JRE 904 Windows x64 bin.tar folder, as well as an Apache active MQ 5152 bin file. I actually don't believe I've seen these on any of the other installation disks we've had for Cherwell. I'm not entirely sure what these are for, but they to me, they point to new functionality. I'm sure maybe they're relevant to the new common one-step runtime that's available in this version. Don't know, but that was the first thing I noticed when I went to install the new version was, hey, we have new files. So the first thing we're going to do when we upgrade to Cherwell version 9.4.0 is we're going to upgrade the server. Now, when you upgrade your Cherwell environment, it's recommended that you stop all of your services, and you can do that by going into Task Manager, going to Services, finding the service that you need to stop. SQL Server is not the one. I think I need to sort this. So ideally you would stop your Cherwell application server, automation process server, email event monitor, and scheduling server. Although when you go to run this, if they are running, the installer should close them for you. So I'm going to leave them open, just because if I stop it, I may not remember to start the service later. And we should see the server installation pop up here in a moment. It may take a moment or two for it to load. They do use Install Shield for their installer. Alright, so I'm going to agree to the license terms. We'll click OK. You can choose the directory that it installs to, which is pretty standard, and we can also upgrade an existing database. This all looks good to me. So, just as I'm skipping through this, you can choose a demo or starter database. This video is going to be about upgrading an existing database, but if you choose the demo or starter database, if this is your first time installing Cherwell, those are databases that have pre-configured content for your system. So you need a Cherwell database to work in Cherwell, and either you've started from the starter database, which has no data in it, and some business objects, or you've started from the demo database, which has all those business objects and data, or you've got your own system configured, in which case you'd upgrade an existing environment. Next, you're asked to log in, and this is the login information for the service accounts that the Cherwell services will run under. Now, this is important. If your Cherwell system integrates with other systems, other databases, if it accesses other external shares or shared drives, or anything like that, you need to make sure that this signs in with an Active Directory service account or something that has access to those external systems. Now, you should be able to check which user account your Cherwell system is signing in as by going into the Services tab here. I might be wrong about that. By opening up the Services configuration dialog in your system. And if you look at this little log on as section here, you'll actually see, for instance, my automation process server is signing in as Cherwell LDAP on my system. That's important. If I don't configure that here, and I don't go back into services later and reconfigure it there, it may not have the same rights that it had before the upgrade. This is an easy thing to screw up when you upgrade your Cherwell system, because by the time you upgrade, it's been long enough to forget that you had an Active Directory service account tied to your Cherwell system. So when you sign in and it asks you whether you need to assign new credentials or not, you need to go and look at your existing Cherwell services setup by the shortcut that I use is to just open Task Manager and go to Services and click Open Services, and then when you look at those services, you'll realize, oh, this is signing in with a service account. we need to find the credentials to that and enter it in so it sets it up again. Otherwise, if you don't enter it here and you find out later, you can still modify the logon as configuration for it in the services dialog, but it's better to get that done beforehand on the install shield wizard. Okay, now at this point you may notice it's popped up a window. It hasn't said anything else on the screen, but it has actually popped up a screen for the system upgrade. Now this is where you're going to pick the environment that you're going to be upgrading on your system. In my case, it's going to be this connection labeled Cherwell. This is my Cherwell version 9.3.0 database. And you'll notice here you only see database connections. You don't see 3-tier connections because you're upgrading the database directly. It's going to ask you if you're okay with it upgrading the database to version 9.4.0. I am. We'll click OK. And then you'll have to sign in. It's very important that you actually know your credentials at the point in time that you're going to sign in. As you can see, this upgrade process is relatively harmless, or relatively painless, I should say. It updates a few business objects with new definitions and new configurations, I think. And then afterwards, we should be able... Really, after we get the server information updated, or the server installation completed, we're able to sign in. The portal and browser apps, you can do right away. You don't have to do that before you sign in. Obviously, if you're on a production environment and you're upgrading a production environment, it's very important that you get the portal and browser apps updated almost immediately. But you can test it out and sign in right after the server installation is done, if you need to. So it looks like our installation is complete. We should see our install shield wizard complete here in a second. Alright, so now it's done. We'll click Finish. And what I'm going to do after this finishes is I'm going to open up my Cherwell system. So I'm just going to double check that I can sign in. Alright, we're able to sign into the client, which is good. Looks like it's taken a couple seconds to download definitions and all that. That's good. I have my mutilated Cherwell dashboard here, so you can see I was working on an HTML page in a previous video here, so that's what this guy is doing. But aside from that, it looks like we're able to sign in, so the upgrade must have worked. And we could try signing into the administrator tool as well. I'm not going to. The next thing to do in our upgrade is going to be to upgrade portal and browser apps. Before I do this, I just want to give you a word of caution. If you've customized your Cherwell environment, and when I say customize, if you've customized your portal and browser apps and you have custom CSS, now is the time to back up that CSS. Because when you upgrade your portal and browser apps, it's going to overwrite everything in that folder. So if you have anything sitting in your, let's see, this is going to be on your C drive, program files, Cherwell browser applications. If you've touched anything in this folder, you need to go back and find out what it was that you modified, take a backup of it, and figure out if you can get it to work after the upgrade. Because if you don't touch it, what's going to happen is when we run this portal and browser apps, as it's installing, it's going to overwrite the contents of that folder. So if you've made changes to those CSS files, back them up. Alright, so we're going to sign in, or we're going to start our installation. We're going to agree to the license terms. I'm not going to install web forms because really web forms aren't used anymore. They can be, but I don't know of anyone that's actively using them in their current environments today. I think almost everyone has effectively been warned off of web forms. I wouldn't be surprised if in Cherwell version 9.5 or if in Cherwell version 10 they just got rid of them. I don't think they will, but it would be funny to see. Hey, no more web forms checkbox. So at this point we're installing the browser apps. It's been my experience that installing the browser apps takes a little bit longer than the server tools, so I might have to skip through a little bit on my video here. So here's the step where it's removing files. That would be, just shorthand for deleting all of your CSS updates if you made them. Now, the only reason I mention that is because I know of a few specific people who have run into issues with that, where they made a change and then a year later they upgraded and they didn't back it up, and they had to spend the time making it again. And oh, it's a bad thing. Alright, it looks like we're just about done with our browser apps installation. Alright, so we finished our portal and browser apps installation. At this point, it's a good idea to go and test your installation. So I'm going to open up Opera, because I actually really like the Opera web browser. And you'd know that if you watched our video on, our Cherwell dev VM setup. So we discussed all the different apps that we use on here. So here, I'm just going to test out our local Cherwell system. At the same time, I'm going to go take a look at the new Cherwell portal on version 9.4. I saw the portal on version 9.3 and I really enjoyed it. And so now I'm going to take a look at the portal on version 9.4. I actually don't know whether they've updated the content on the portal or not. I don't know if they need to. On version 9.3 it was pretty great. Now what I'm noticing is that it's taking a little while for the portal to spin up. And part of this is because we just upgraded, so it's got to load everything into memory, and then there's also a cache in our browser that it has to fill with data. So if you've just cleared your cache and cookies, it takes a while to load the portal, and also if you've just started up IIS, it takes a while to load the portal. I don't know why Quick Search looks like that actually. I don't know if that's just my no, that's definitely the browser. Do you guys see that? That's odd. Anyways, so the portal loads. So our upgrade went pretty seamlessly, pretty flawlessly. Our recording so far has been 14 minutes, so it should take you about 15 minutes really to actually upgrade your Cherwell environment. Of course, you'll be doing testing afterwards. You got to test out any integrations you've built, anything like that, any custom workflows. You're going to want to sign into your Cherwell environment, and you're going to want to test them out. And the reason that you have to do that is just, they've changed the one steps run on a different architecture now. They use different code, and you just got to make sure everything still works the same. But aside from that, your upgrade at this point is complete, and the next morning, all of your users, they're going to use the Cherwell auto deploy service to update their client. If you don't use the Cherwell auto deploy, before you upgrade, you need to put a lot of consideration into how they're going to download the new version. If you use SCCM, you need to make sure that or if you use Software Center, you need to make sure you're pushing that package out at the right time, right after this upgrade gets done. If you use the auto deploy tool, obviously they'll use that. But if you have a lot of users that are going to be connecting to the same system, you may want to let them know that when they go and download from the auto deploy tool the next morning, they're going to be doing so at the same time as 50, 100, 700 other users. So just imagine in your system if every employee you had tried to request a 150 megabyte file from that server. Just saying, you want to make sure that it's able to handle that kind of load at the point in time that they're all going to be signing in the morning to upload or to handle that upgrade. So don't coincide this with some other event where you're going to have a lot of network traffic. You want to make sure that they're able to get that download on their machine in a pretty timely fashion. That way they're not spending 30 minutes waiting for the auto deploy tool to download. Now, I haven't seen any cases where this has been very bad. It's just a very important note to kind of get out there because, if you're hosted or if you have your system on somewhere where you've got users halfway around the world and they don't have a great network connection to your client, you need to be aware of that because when they go to download the new version, I don't remember exactly how big it is, but I'm sure the client's at least about 150 megabytes. And then once they download the client, it'll also have to reload definitions, which is maybe another 120 meg. So that's a lot of data to be sending over your network after the upgrade's done. But aside from that, that's the end of our video. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe because we'll be creating many, many, many more. If you'd like to see all of the maps that we have on the exchange, you can go to our website, which is defeditsoftware.com. There's a contact form on that website if you want to reach out to us. You can also email me at doug@defeditsoftware.com. Thanks for watching.